It didn't take much more than a bottle and 2 chairs to make a speakeasy. This is what Daniel Okrent said in his book, Last Call, The Rise and Fall of Prohibition. Today, join us for some stories. Get your own bottle, glass, or mug, and relax. This is Speak Easily, and I'm your host, Krista Stauffer.
I left the house. Of course I wear pants.
Right. Well, and Brian, in your line of work, it's probably important that everybody wears pants as well.
Yes, it's a health code thing. So
I'm not sure there's too many professions where not wearing a pants is like cool. I don't know. Are there? Obviously pornography, yeah. But
yeah. I'm trying to think of others. Swimmers?
Yeah, swimmers. That's a good one, actually.
Thank you. This is what I do in my free time. Is think of a profession. I don't have to wear pants. There's 2.
It's a noble endeavor.
Is it though?
Is anything?
We were talking about locations. Brian, I am so impressed. Like, your setup is lovely. You have
Thank you.
perfect lighting and everything. And I was explaining my disgusting setup behind me here. And I'm completely washed out by light right now. There we go. If I just do the podcast like this, that won't be weird, right?
Perfect. It's a good
Thank you. That's what I'm striving for here.
If you can get as much neck as possible, I think that really helps.
Hi, welcome to Speak It. My granddad, random story, my granddad had to get his license picture taken, and he had glasses on, and they said the glare is catching on. So legit pictures like this. Poor granddad.
That's amazing.
Yes. So Brian, is so nice to meet you. I think until a week ago, I knew you as Brio Easton. So.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Are people calling you just Brio Easton at this point?
Yeah, usually a lot of people say, "What's your name?" Well, I want to know what your name is. I said, "Just Brio Easton."
Mm-hmm. Do you have a middle name or?
Thomas. Brio Thomas Easton.
Tomash. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to get into definitely, recently what's been going on, but we talked a little bit that you are originally from Columbus. Where did you grow up?
Yes.
Where did you grow up?
So I grew up south of Columbus, kind of close to the Cider Downs, Racino, and Rickenbacker Air Force Base, and lived most of my childhood and young adult life here. Okay. And then I went to Ohio State University, and I majored in theater. And about halfway through my theater degree, I said, I probably should maybe pick up something else as well. Because at the time I was dating a girl and she was taking a statistics class. And I remember she was going over all of her notes in class and she was saying how difficult and strenuous this is. And she says, "What did you do in class today?" I said, "Well, we just laid on the floor and pretended like we were at the ocean." So at that point, I figured out that maybe I should pick up something in addition to theater. So I picked up a different degree entirely, which was Germanic and Slavic 19th and 20th century European history. And what I wanted to do with that, I'm not really sure, maybe teach or something like that. But that was my path. And then at that point, I graduated and I worked for Bon V, which is a sister restaurant of ours. And I was offered a job as a manager. And that job was taking me to Dallas, Texas, which I lived there for about 2 years. Yeah. And then at that point, they opened up a restaurant in Las Vegas. And they asked me if I wanted to go. And I said, "Yep, absolutely, I want to go." And I told my wife, and she screamed with delight. And we packed our bags and we moved to Vegas. But when we got to Vegas, we realized that not our restaurant, but the entire mall, which was being built in the middle of a desert, which makes a lot of sense, was delayed. And it was not delayed just a couple weeks, but about 6 months. So they then redirected us to Birmingham, Alabama, and we lived in this little hotel for 6 months in the middle of the woods. And we had just gotten married at the time too, so we spent our first Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's there, and that was tough. But then moved to Vegas and got Vegas open, and we worked out there for 7 years at 2 different locations. And then we got the 7-year itch, and then moved back to Columbus to be close to my family, and work on a house that we renovated, and here we are. And I work for Brio at Easton now. And the funny roundabout thing with that story is that I initially, when I first started, I did my training at the Brio Easton location almost 16 years ago.
Wow.
And the even funnier thing is I originally, when I was I think I was a senior in high school, or yes, a senior in high school. I applied to work at Brio at Easton, and I had only worked at a Skyline Chili at the time. And I remember the guy that interviewed me said, "I just don't think you have enough qualifications to work for us." And I said, "All right, I got it." So I worked some other places, obviously, prior to that. And then to do my training there was pretty neat. And at the end of that training, that same gentleman still worked there. And he said, "You know what? I would definitely love you to be part of my team if you ever needed a home." And I said, "That's really funny. Here's a story." And I told him, and he laughed with a big belly laugh. And then obviously started my career and went to all those different places. And to come back and start again at the place where it all began, I think it is neat and also humbling at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of a nice, I did it. And the coolest thing is when Brio opened at Easton in 1999, when I was in high school, I was in the marching band, and we had a choice to where we wanted to go for our senior dinner. And we chose Brio. And I remember that was like the most magical, coolest place that I'd ever been. And I just remember sitting there and looking up at the ceiling like, this is amazing. And they served a big salad with a giant knife stuck in it. I was like, oh, this is great. So that, I think, has kind of spiked my appetite for what I wanted to do.
Literally.
It's very cool.
That's awesome. So I do have to laugh because I, as well, am a theater major. I'll still claim it. And like you, I decided, I probably should get another degree or something to add, a minor, so
Right.
I got mine in creative writing.
Perfect.
Because that's really just as useful.
Oh, I know.
If you went back and got a fine art degree, you'd kind of complete a trifecta there.
That'd be it.
Well, I'm actually really good at the jobs that don't make a lot of money. So if there's other ones out there, I probably, sociology is a good one probably, but no,
Sure.
I'm lucky to get to actually use my degree every day, which is very, very cool. But I love the fact that you were an actor, and that's kind of been showing up publicly recently. So
It has a little bit.
Yeah. Explain to us sort of like with this whole Corona nightmare, what happened with you guys in the Brio industry?
So we all were watching the news on that one Sunday 3 weeks ago. And Governor DeWine came out and he said, restaurants are going to go to carry out only. And, to find out the same time as the public finds out, and then to have a plan immediately, that's pretty daunting. And it's something that none of us had ever experienced before. And at that point, we made a lot of phone calls and had to call, 150 staff members and say, hey, you're still an employee with us, but we don't have a return to work date and we don't have any other information. And I think that that was a hard night. That was a hard night for all of us. And to kind of lock up that place and walk out not knowing what tomorrow would bring, I think that really kind of put all of us, honestly, on our heels a lot. And so for the first couple of days, I think most people were in panic mode, and they were, raiding grocery stores and filling carts and filling up on gas and things like that. And we just weren't busy. We weren't busy at all. And that was also scary because we said, how can we convince, people to come here? How can our company afford to keep us open if we're not making any money? And at that point, we just started to clean. So we just cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. And in addition to that, we then received information from our corporate office that most of them had been furloughed too, including the marketing department and things like that. So they said we were going to have to market ourselves from a local level. and that's nothing that any of us had really had to do before. I mean, obviously we participated in fundraising and things like that and some grassroots marketing, but not on a marketing national scale per se. So we created a Facebook page and we posted some stock photos and things like that. And then we witnessed a few more of our management team being furloughed, and that was a real punch in the gut because, you know, the employees were daunting. You know, those were daunting phone calls, and that was tough. But especially like the people that you work, you know, arm by arm every single day, that was hard. That really was a punch in the gut. So I remember they did that happened, and they had another press conference with Governor DeWine, and I was sitting there watching that, and that's when they said schools are going to be closed for 2 or 3 weeks. And I sat there and I said, I got to do something about this. And at that point, my brother had reached out to me and said, hey, who runs your Facebook page? And I said, well, it's kind of all of us. And he said, you know, you need to have some pictures of food and some pictures of your employees and maybe some live entertainment or something like that, something to make, you know, a little bit of resonance. And I said, you know, that's a pretty good idea. So I filmed my first clip, which was mostly me just cooking a dish, but it was a little cheeky. And my catchphrase was, I think, did your wife just tell you that you're in charge of dinner tonight, but you don't know where the can opener is? And that was it. That was the funniest part of it. And everything else was just me cooking, and boom, and I threw out the pasta, and that was it. And it got some likes, and it got some views. And I said, huh. So about 2 hours later, I said, I'm going to do another one. So I did another one. And then all of a sudden that got like 300 or 400 views. And I said, wow, that's pretty cool. Because we only had maybe like 25 Facebook friends at the time.
Yeah.
So then I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she likes to take my phone and run around with it while it's on. And the view is literally this when she's running around. And I always think that's really funny. So I did one of me running to Brio because my tagline was, are you bummed that all your gyms are closed? Well, you can run to Brio. And I ran to Brio and grabbed some to-go food from my general manager and turned around and ran off. And that got like 1,200 views. And I said, I think we figured something out. Yeah. So then we got to work. And I guess I've been cooking up all of these crazy ideas in my head for 15 years. So that's kind of where we've ended up.
That degree really is coming through now. You are using it daily, and you will continue.
I think my mom and dad are super happy.
That's all right. Now you've got to get some of that Germanic European stuff in there with the.
We'll figure it out. I've got a hat collection that I've been trying to introduce too, so that's been helpful.
So what have you made? How many videos at this point? Like 15, 16?
Filmed? I have filmed 42.
Are you serious?
And
wow.
Yep. And I've only probably released about half of that.
Okay.
So maybe less than half of that.
Okay.
And my wife is she's my producer, my wardrobe assistant, and prop master. So I come home usually after working, 10 or 11 hours, and I say, we got to film something. And she goes, we have to put the kid to bed. And I go, great. We put the kid to bed. I eat a sandwich real quick, and then we go and film something in the middle of the night. And she just gives me the craziest looks. But then all of a sudden when I come back the next morning, I say, hey, I posted it, and it's got, 4,000 views. It's a kind of a nice pat on the back. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Does she give you any of the ideas?
Yeah, some. She's had some really good ideas, and she is my biggest critic. So we'll film something, and she'll say that was not funny, or that was terrible, and she's very direct. So she will be very honest with me, but it's helpful. And a lot of the videos that I shoot are typically first takes, but then when I have to deliver like a whole slew of information about like promotions and all kinds of stuff, those are usually a couple takes. But we did some Easter ones, and man, we had to film those like 5 or 6 times a piece. And I had the really encouraging thing is that the company approached us, Brio Easton, and said, hey, we like what you're doing at a local level. Can you do videos for us at a national level? So they have shown 2 of 4 so far, and that's pretty neat. So I guess if you would say 2 weeks ago, hey, do you think you would be like this weird local semi-celebrity person
You can claim it.
during a pandemic? And I would say, absolutely not. That's crazy. No one would ever believe that. But that's kind of what's happening. And the reason why I say local celebrity is I've been stopped on a few occasions and people have said, Brio guy. And I said, yep, like pumping gas. That happened to me. My wife got stopped last night because she was talking to somebody about Brio and they mentioned who I was, and someone stepped in and said, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's your husband? She said, yep. And they said, well, I love those videos. And they gave me life. And I said, that's pretty cool. So pretty neat.
Yeah. I think the introduction to your videos that I started a really random Facebook group called the Quarantine Creative Outlet. And it was when everything was starting to shut down. All of us actors were basically given this, sorry,
Right.
you're not working.
Right.
And I know for me, clearly you probably, even in this 10 minutes that we've been talking to each other, I don't sit still very well. So
Sure.
I started this Facebook group where people could post anything creative. And somebody posted one of your videos, or I linked it up, or I saw it and posted it on there. And it was like, this is brilliant. And what's so cool about this time, and probably what you've experienced, is that we're doing things that we would not be doing. We would never
in a million years.
never.
Nope.
No. Like, why in the world would you come home from a shift?
I would be petrified to have put those videos on our Facebook page and be like, hey, corporate office, what do you think? But the interesting thing is that, and not just for restaurants, but a lot of businesses, this has leveled the playing field. I mean, it has put everyone at the same point, whether you're the busiest restaurant in Columbus or you're a mom and pop or you're somewhere in the middle, all of a sudden, boom, it doesn't matter because you have to support yourselves now. And I think, if we all do this right and do this correctly, and obviously if this doesn't draw on too long, I hope we all come out of this a lot stronger and maybe a lot more kind of figured out on romancing the brand, romancing restaurants in a way, or local businesses and things, because sometimes things just get a little bit too, stock photo. And maybe if you put a human face to it sometimes, that I think people kind of, get more excited about things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And now you guys have a staff of 4?
4. That's it. So we work 6 days a week, open to close every day. And usually my routine with the other general manager, as well as the executive chef and sous chef, is we usually get there at 10 every day. And then for 2 hours, we usually prep all the food. So the other thing is that a lot of the luxury items that we used to get in the past, like chopped lettuce, or maybe some things that were already pre-diced or done for us in a way. Not that they were pre-packaged, but base products, those don't exist. So I might stand and chop 2 or 3 cases of lettuce by hand. I might make this by hand or that by hand, and it is kind of was surprising at first. Because, the things we were getting in, they weren't great products, so we didn't want to serve them. And a lot of people go, quarantine, I got to stay in my house, and maybe I'll go to a restaurant. But the quarantine affects people through so many different layers. I mean, if you just think about a restaurant alone, obviously we laid off employees, but it's not just that. It's the supply chains. It's the farmers that produce the product. It's the butchers. It's everybody. It goes back so far. The truck drivers, everyone, that whole unit of people that come together to make a restaurant work. All of that's just in limbo. So to try to reinvent yourselves, not only from a marketing standpoint, but just from an operations standpoint, we are doing that. But I think a lot of restaurants that did choose to close might not have been able to figure that out, and that's sad, and that's tough, because it's a precarious position to put yourself in, and not knowing where you'll be even 2 days from now or a week from now, I think is what is the hardest question that no one can really answer. And I think we are doing our best to still be the exact same restaurant that you remember. We're on a little bit of a limited menu right now, just because there's a lot of product we can't get in. And plus there's 4 of us, so we can't make, 80 menu items. But yeah, when you go to a local restaurant, or if you decide that you want to go out to eat, this week or next week, don't think that it's a staff of 30 or 40 people putting together. I mean, it's probably 10 or less that are making it happen every single day. So when people say go support your local restaurants, you're not just supporting those people that are working, but what you're doing is you're guaranteeing a place for all those employees to return.
Yeah.
And if, say, the wine came out next week and said, you know what, the peak is going to spike and it's going to be too hard and everyone has to stay home and we're going to have to stop carry out altogether, and and that might be a reality, I don't know, but I personally, as well as the other 3 of us, can say, we went down swinging and we went down fighting.
Yeah.
And we're fighting for the people that work for us, and not just them, but we're also fighting for all the guests that might have, enjoyed us since 1999, that they've shared, wedding receptions, anniversaries, and birthday parties, and special moments, and business meetings, and things like that. So, to not let the dining landscape shift tremendously, I think is what is the hardest thing for us to work for, but that's what we're trying to prop up and support.
Absolutely. And at Easton, I actually was driving around. I live about 10 minutes from Easton, and I needed to get out of the house. I know that's a shocker to everyone, that I may not be a homebody, but I was just taking a drive. How many restaurants at Easton have closed?
So that first week they started with about 21, but I know that number has gone down. I don't know the official number. Yeah. I know that on our side, there are just about 4 of us or 5 of us that are in operation. But all businesses are closed. So there's one video of me going out and laying out in the middle of the street because I could, because there's no one there. And it's funny, we'll prep all day, and then all of a sudden I'll find a break, and I'll say, hey, I gotta go film a video clip real quick. And they're like, okay. So like yesterday, I'm like walking around in a blonde wig outside of the restaurant. And I'm so used to having nobody there, and it could be Saturday and there's nobody there. Yeah. And all of a sudden this woman came around the corner and she goes, hey, nice hat. And I went, whoa. And I just wasn't prepared for that. So it just, I don't know. It's just so odd. It's so odd to be in the busiest mall in, I think, the United States, or one of the top ones in the United States, and to have not a soul around except for security and police. I mean, it's wild. Absolutely wild.
So bizarre. Wow. How is your...
So you've been downtown recently too. It's very similar to that too. I mean, it's just no matter where you go. I mean, and I think that's probably just everywhere in the entire country. It's just, it's almost spooky,
It is, especially I think that first Saturday night, walking to my car at like 8:15, because we close at 8. Like 9 o'clock on Saturdays, and there's nobody, And before, you'd have to like fight through crowds of people and like find your car and sit and wait to get out of the garage and sit at 3 stoplights, and I'm home in 20 minutes. I mean, it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Drive times are pretty good right now. They just installed all of those billboards over the freeways that say it's like, heavy traffic delays and that kind of thing. Well, they used to say that. They don't say that anymore. It's all like, expect no traffic. Yeah.
I think you can get to Cleveland in like 45 to 50 minutes.
Are we sure about that, Brian? I don't think that's the speed limit.
If you believe, you can achieve.
The more you know.
We need this. We need the star moving across the top. Maybe we could get. Can you insert that on my screen, Ben? Or do I have to have a green screen? I want the star. The more you.
We need to get actually just you. I've got a green sheet at the studio. I'm going to have you hang up behind you because then we can put you anywhere.
Can I
So.
always wear green when I do it too? So I'm just a floating head.
Just a floating head. Yeah.
Okay.
I like that idea a lot. I've thought about bringing my portable one here for behind me too. So I don't know. The show's evolving, folks. It's gonna get weird. So depending on how long this goes, it might be a special effect bonanza coming soon.
So we
It'll be good.
What we have learned, and Brian, you'll appreciate this, is we as actors in Columbus have started doing what we call virtual theater. So we're actually doing a play via Zoom that other people can watch. This is our third weekend of it. And this weekend we decided to do a comedy. And it's about a 15-minute, 2-person comedy. And it's lovely. And they fall in love from the beginning to the end. And so I said, as the director, I really don't want to read all the stage directions. I don't want to bore people with all of that, except for the end, because they kiss. Obviously, we can't do a stage kiss. And both of the actors kind of went like, ah. And so we have now incorporated an online stage kiss.
That's crazy.
It works. And I said, the only problem with this is like, if this is really the first time you're meeting each other, you guys are giving a lot of tongue. So maybe he's back on the tongue.
Back off there a little bit. Stranger danger. Watch out.
Yeah. We're discovering all of these great new things during.
Did you see the cast of Hamilton sang a song for a little girl, and they did it through Zoom, and it was the whole cast. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. My wife and I watched that like 2 nights ago, and we were just like, oh, it's fantastic, but it was super, super cool. But it's just neat, I mean, this time creates different opportunities and different ways to figure things out. So it's kind of wild.
Did you guys see Hamilton? Did you see Hamilton when it?
Yes, we saw Hamilton when it was in Columbus, and it was outstanding.
It's amazing.
Outstanding. Really great.
Yeah,
really great.
It was our 15. How many years have we been married? 10. That's not good. Sorry. For our 10th anniversary, we went to Chicago, and my friend Matt from Otterbein had just gotten a job as the company manager, and it had just opened in Chicago probably 2 months before that. And I'm looking online for tickets, and it's like, well, this one seat is $495 for obstructed view. That's not bad. And then reached out to him, and he's like, well, why don't you just take my company seats? So we're 6 rows from the stage.
Oh, wow.
The original Chicago cast. Like,
that's incredible.
And then we got to go on stage afterward. This is like the pinnacle theater moment. I'm geeking out. We went backstage. He's like, yeah, come on up. You guys can check out the stage. And then we walk back. I'm not typically a fangirl. It's like there's not a whole lot of reason to be. Everybody's pretty normal. We're seeing that in this time. But man, I fangirled because we go backstage and he stops 2 of the company members, Karen Olivio and I can't remember the other one offhand, but they're standing like right there and he's talking to them about paychecks. I'm like, honey, she's a Tony Award winner. She's a Tony Award winner. She's a Tony Award winner. Yeah, I mean, it was freaking incredible. And that show, my gosh, it's so
insane.
good. So good.
Yeah. And theater and history all in one. So my forte.
Yes, this is that weird thing that happens of like you actually learn a lot from. I didn't know much about Hamilton, and it's like now I do.
Fascinating character.
Yeah,
created the banking system. I mean, it's incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
and why we don't pay more attention to him. I'm glad that we do now because of this play.
Absolutely,
I think that's really great.
The only other thing that I knew, because I didn't pay attention in history, that took too much time, I guess. But do you remember there was an old milk commercial? That was where I first heard about Aaron Burr. And it was this dude sitting in his house and he's making a peanut butter sandwich. And the radio is saying, now for the $5,000 question, who shot Alexander Hamilton? But he's got peanut butter in his mouth and he's going, oh, boo. Oh, boo. Like, hold on, let me know. Like that. One of the best commercials.
That's great.
Yeah. Yes. So tell me, we briefly started on this, but I want to know, how did you and your wife meet? This sounds like a very interesting story.
It's maybe the greatest love story of all time. So I was studying at Ohio State, and I was taking a Russian history class. And I was terrible at planning my schedule sometimes. So I had like a 4-hour break in between these two classes. And there was a couch in front of the classroom that sat in front of a bulletin board. And I would go there every day, and I would sit and read and study and things like that. And there was a tour that I had signed up for earlier with a different department. And it was going to go to Russia in the summer. And they were going to go to Moscow and St. Petersburg. And at that point, I had signed up and put down a deposit, and that was my summer plans, and I was ready to go. So then I got an email, and they said, hey, due to lack of interest, we're going to cancel that trip. And I was devastated, because that's what I was going to do. You know, I'd already kind of started making plans and things. And I was sitting on that couch and happened to turn around, and there was I still can see it vividly, a yellow piece of paper that said, study Russia through the waterway of the czars. And they had the trip dates and a gentleman's phone number. And I called it, and he was a professor emeritus at Ohio State. And he said, look, I've got one spot left. It has to be a male based off of the room occupancy. And I have to know by today, and I'll need your deposit tomorrow because the trip closes tomorrow. And I said, bingo, done. I'm in. Let's do it. So we had a couple meetings just to get the group oriented with each other. And I was actually the youngest person on that trip. Everyone else was mostly retired professors and things like that. And, you know, I think a lot of people had gone on, you know, the drink your way through Europe tours and things like that. And while those are fun, you don't learn a lot. Yeah. And I wanted to learn a little bit. So we had 2 different meetings, and the meeting before we left, they said, hey, by the way, the ship that you're going to sail on, they have rebooked us on a different ship. No consequence to any of us, but the name of the ship will be different, just in case you're curious. And we all just went, okay, whatever. So we flew into Moscow and spent, I think, 5 amazing days there. And then we boarded this river boat, which was built by the East Germans. And they built those in the late 80s. And they were pretty tight and pretty cramped. And when you say cruise ship, I don't mean cruise ship. It was mostly like a riverboat casino that was kind of turned into a hotel, floating hotel. And I remember in the bathroom, there was a toilet, and then there was a sink that you would face. And then the shower head was actually the sink faucet, and you'd put that up on a hook, and you would take a bath over your toilet. And that, not my favorite, but so it was a little bit of a weird cruise. But every day on that cruise, they would have some sort of either cultural history, political kind of discussion by someone that's presenting whatever they're going to talk about. And we would always attend those. And they were going to do one on Russian jewelry. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go to the bar on the ship and maybe sit this one out. But for some reason, everybody else was going. And they said, come on, you might as well go, because no one's going to be, you don't want to drink by yourself. And I said, okay, I'll go. So I was sitting there, and out walks this girl that I thought was the most beautiful girl in the world. And it was love at first sight. And after the presentation, I went up and talked to her. And she was, I think, startled because she didn't expect anyone to come talk to her. And it turned out that she also worked in the gift shop on the cruise ship. So I frequented that gift shop over and over. And she, to this very day, she says, you always remember, I never did give you a discount when you came to the gift shop. And I said, I know. And so we hung out every day, all day, for like the last few days of that trip. And then we boarded a bus to go to Finland, and we were going to go to Helsinki for a few days. And I remember I got on that bus and I said goodbye to her, and I sat next to my roommate. His name was Paul. And Paul was probably in his 50s at the time. And I was 24, 23. And I remember I sat there and I just cried. I just cried and cried. And I was like, I've never, ever felt this way about somebody, especially someone that I just met. And I was just, it was devastated. So we went to Finland, and I remember I tried all night to figure out how to call her. And that was before, you know, FaceTime or anything.
Right.
And, you know, her phone number was about this long. And I sat in this Finnish hotel room trying to call someone in Russia. And I finally gave up, and my roommate said, let's just go down, we'll get dinner. And that's that. So flew back to the United States. And I remember I worked at Gordon Biersch downtown as a server, and my phone rang, and it was this crazy long number. And I said, what is this? And I answered it, and it was her. And she figured out finally how to get a hold of me. So we talked every day for a year through either email or by phone. I'd have to like run to a gas station and buy a phone card, because they would all of a sudden in the middle of our phone call would just drop out, and that'd be it. That'd be it until I could buy another phone card. Yeah. And so I then graduated from college, and then I said, hey, we're going to go to Germany and France because I want to see all the places that I studied when I was in college. And I said, you don't happen to want to meet me in Paris for a couple of days, do you? And she was like, yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to go. So we spent like 11 days in Paris, and it was incredible, and fell deeply in love with her, and came back. And I remember I was like devastated again. So I flew back to Russia, and I spent like a month with her in Russia and her family, and met all of her friends, and adored all of them. And they were so receptive and so nice. And flew back, and I remember my mom had made me dinner, because I flew back to Columbus. And I remember I just sat over my plate, and I just cried. And I was like, I can't believe this person is doing this to me. I mean, it was so hard, because every time we said goodbye, you never knew if that was it. Mm-hmm. And so that very next day I said, I know what I'm going to do. So we went to a jewelry store, and I bought a ring, and called her up, and I said, hey, do you want to go to Rome? And she said, yep. So I lived with my parents at the time, so that's why I could do all this. But flew to Rome, and I proposed to her in Rome, and she said yes. And then a few months later, my mom and I flew back to Russia to ask the blessing of her family, because that's kind of a very big traditional thing that they do there. And they said yes, and flew back. And then she flew here, and then we got married. And the funny thing is that, you know, not only was I not supposed to be on that trip, but I was not supposed to also be on the ship that she was on. But in addition, which I didn't find out till a while later, is the night before we set sail on that ship, she was transferred to the ship that we were on. So it was just like crazy, crazy fate. Yeah. So it's awesome. And, you know, she's my rock, and she's super supportive of me, and I'm super supportive of her. And we've been married forever now, it seems. And at the same time, it feels like we've only been together still for a few months. So it's just awesome. Super, super awesome. So that's our sappy love story, but I think it's pretty cool. So
that's awesome. That's so cool. But Ben and I are both like,
it's very sweet.
oh,
No, shucks. Come on.
and now she's your producer and director and videographer.
That's awesome.
Prop master, everything. She does it all. So it's funny, you know, doing all of these different videos, man, it's hard to find props and stuff. You can't like go to the wig store and buy a wig. You can't go rent a costume. You can't do anything. So you just have to improvise. So, you know, I did this radio interview a couple days ago, and they're like, how are you doing your hair and stuff? And I said, I'm digging through Halloween's past, and I'm trying to make it work. But you might see some same wigs pop up here and there, maybe different styles. Maybe we'll restyle somehow using hairspray. But
a little bit,
yeah, it's tough.
You know, it does frighten me that I have a full prop room in my building. Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to send you a list of things I need, and you can Lysol them and sit them on your porch, and then 48 hours later, I'll come and pick them up.
There you go. Don't tell my boss.
It'll work. It's funny. I'll come home and I'll say, honey, I need one beret, and I also need a blonde wig. And she'll say, I just, don't worry, it's for work. It's just like, okay, great.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's,
I would love to say that those are some weird things that I say during this time. Those are weird things I say in general.
yeah.
Sort of, we couldn't get the groceries in the car because I had suit jackets, a cowboy hat, and something else in the trunk. And Doug is like, what is all of this stuff? I was like, props, costumes, duh. Like, this is what we do. It's still there. I need to.
Yeah, I came to work one day and I had this big bag of stuff, and my chef was like, "What's in that bag?" And I said, "It's mostly my wife's jewelry, sunglasses, a silk wrap with a tiger print on it, and a blonde wig." And he was like, "I don't want to know. Just show me the video when you're done." So,
Yes. What has been your favorite one to make so far?
I think the Tiger King one obviously was the most popular. I just looked before we started to do this, and I think it was at 7,200 views right now. So I'm just waiting on my check from Facebook, I guess, is what I'm kind of sitting here for. But there's a few that we haven't released yet that I think are my favorites, because the first dozen or so was just kind of like off the cuff. And we're just like, let's try it out and we'll shoot it. And if it's great, perfect. If not, then we'll just do something different. But then I downloaded some movie editor things and been working on some transition stuff and adding some music and things to kind of give it more of like a professional look. So there's some ones that are going to roll down the pipeline here, I think, that I'm the most proud of. Whether they'll have the biggest reception, I don't know. Like I did one parody yesterday of Brad Pitt's speech in Inglourious Bastards, and I like that speech and I like that movie. But I know that that's kind of a pigeonhole audience in a way. I mean, if you didn't see the movie, you don't know what I'm talking about. But that was a big favorite of mine. But then, that didn't get very many views. So it just kind of depends. I think people generally just like slapstick and goofiness. There was one we did yesterday that I posted that these two girls, it's me in two different wigs, but they're both on the phone talking about Brio and offering Bellinis, because now you can serve liquor outside of your doors as of yesterday. So that was a goofy one that I just did real quick, and it was kind of a play on like the Budweiser, the What's Up one, and that's like wildfire right now. People are crazy about it. So it's just funny what people kind of get latched onto and what other things you post that you're really proud of that people are like, meh. So I don't know. It's just kind of finding your audience, I guess, in a way. But I don't know. I try to kind of layer it with maybe some interesting things or some parodies of some different movies, as well as goofy stuff too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got the blonde wig, so there is a bevy of options, and I'm glad that it's blonde. I mean, if you have a curly redhead wig, there's only so many Annies you could do,
I know. The selling only comes out tomorrow. That's it. I was in Annie when I was in middle school. I played the butler.
Aww.
Yeah. So
that's so cool.
I remember the one of the girls who played, and she'll kill me that I tell you this, but I don't care. She walked out and was getting ready to sing, I think Tomorrow or something, and she went, "Woo, woo," and then she ran off the stage. And fortunately, we had an understudy in a high school production. I don't know why, but we did. And we took a very long intermission and put the wig on the other girl, and then she came out and finished the show. And I was like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. And I still have. That's the only time I've ever saw that. And I was like, man, that is a tough way to make your debut. But I think she was only in 7th or 8th grade at the time, but whew, that was a doozy.
It's amazing.
I'm sure we all have theater horror stories from years past. So,
to be honest, I've not, knocking on the table, been in a show where an understudy had to go on due to illness. We just finished off a month at Short North Stage with Saturday Night Fever. A month, 5 weeks of performances.
Wow.
And we had, pretty much every role had an understudy. And there was only one that was used, but we knew that actress had to go away. And so her understudy was prepared to go on that weekend.
Right.
No, it was just, and yeah, I mean, half the cast was sick, but what cracked me up, and we've talked about this when we've had Saturday Night Fever people on, I had an understudy, and God bless, so I played the old lady, and my understudy was 20. Yeah, like
So you're just 3 years difference. It's fine.
Yeah, I was like, I basically would have to have complete laryngitis and explosive diarrhea to not go on. So you should be fine. Luckily, those didn't happen, but it's like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Sorry, there's children. It sounds like elephants in here. Those are my children. So yeah. So I know we don't know like what's next, but what's next for you? I mean, just day to day until.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think is just to develop as much following as we can. And I hope I don't run out of ideas before then. I don't think I will, but I think, just to continue to get our presence known. And I think the most encouraging thing is that by doing it this way, we are seeing a lot of people that either A, never knew that we existed, or B, always knew about us but just didn't ever come.
Yeah.
And I think when you find those people that walk in and they go, I've never been here before, but I saw your videos, I think that's pretty cool. So, if say a few weeks or months from now, if we could continue to do this and still operate as a restaurant, I think I'm being supported by a lot of people around me, not just work, but also personal. And I think that's encouraging. And also, if I end up being the mascot for the company, that's super cool too. If not, I still at least made a really neat impact, I think, and maybe change the social marketing scene for a long time. Hopefully, at least for just our company, but maybe other companies too. It is interesting and also flattering because I have noticed other restaurants kind of, I don't want to say copycat, but paying homage to what we are doing. And I think that is, that's pretty neat. I like that. That's pretty cool. So.
Well, Brian, I think you should be very, very proud of yourself. It's what you're doing, and I know a lot of other people are doing it, but what specifically you are doing is not only helping your company, but I love watching it. It's nice to see something that's completely out of the norm at this point, or, that's not focused on tragic, hard things. And, especially in an industry where pretty much everybody in your industry is not working.
Right.
So it's so good to see so much of that positive message coming out. And it's not just about advertising, but you should be daggone proud of yourself.
Thank
proud
you.
of you, man.
Appreciate it.
I'd fist bump you. Now I look like I'm punching you. So that.
A fist bump is like this, straight towards the camera,
There.
like that, and then
that doesn't look like a fist.
That doesn't look like a fist. That's
oh no, oh no, oh no, oh why are we doing this? This isn't right.
Yeah, dude. Just sort of like the stage. Yeah. We'll keep finding ways for that. But oh my gosh, Brian, thank you so much. Thank you. How can people find your stuff, and also how do we get your food? I mean, that's important too.
So if you go to Brio Easton on Facebook, that's the best place to find us. We're also on Instagram as well. And then if you want to order, you can call us at Brio at Easton. The number is 416-4745, or you can order online at brioitalian.com, as well as if you prefer to have it delivered and maybe have a contact-free situation, Grubhub, Postmates, and DoorDash are our partners with that as well.
So cool. And the food is good. I like your
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Aside
Love
from all
Brio.
that, I mean, the food's great. So.
Great. What's your favorite thing to cook?
You know what? When I did my training, when you cook pasta at Brio, it's not like you put sauce in a pan and heat it up and then you put noodles in it and that's pasta. So we build everything in the pan. And when I did my training there, the chef that was running the restaurant on my first day of training, you verbally we call it fire, but you verbally call all of those pastas to that cook, and you cook all of the pastas in a grouping simultaneously. So he might fire to you, say 8 or 10 pastas, and then you cook all of those at once, sling them out, and then he'll fire again. And the reason why they do that is for timing, because pastas are quick. You don't want a 3-minute pasta to come out at the same time as you're waiting on a 20-minute steak. So I remember I'd work that station, and he would fire like 10 pastas. And I was like, it's my first day. And I always remember that it was difficult. I would struggle. And I remember the sous chef came over and was like, just watch me do it. And he would like cook with me, and he was awesome. But now I've come back and I've figured all that out. So that was kind of like a cool, like hoorah, big win for me, that I'm able to do it. So I think cooking pastas is pretty cool. But I can cook a great steak. I could make a nice salad, and I can cook anything. So that's exciting too. And that's the difference now than it was, 3 weeks ago. Was I trained to do all these things? Yeah, but it's 15, 16 years ago. And every time we do a rollout, we do cook the dish once or twice, but that's it. Yeah. But to have my hands on the product every single day, that's something that we never did. We're aware, we know the ingredients, but in terms of like actually producing things, we wouldn't do that as management. So to have this total role reversal and shift, and now I'm not just the cook, but I'm the dishwasher, the prep cook. I'm also the guy that answers the phone. I bag up your food, and I'm also making goofy movies, is quite the whirlwind. But I think we're all doing it as best as we can and in great strides. So in terms of what I like to cook, I'd say pastas are great, but everything that we do is good. And everything that we do is from scratch, and we make it every single day. So we don't take shortcuts. Everything is prepared perfectly. And I'd say call us up today if you can.
I'm so hungry right now. I just looked at the time like, oh, I didn't eat lunch.
We deliver.
I know you do. I know. I actually, the last play reading that I did, I had calamari and a salad.
Nice. Literally
shoving my face right before we went on. That's the classy actor that I am.
What do you have that's keto friendly?
What? Come on. Is that real?
It is, actually. Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can do a steak and all the different kinds of things. We can
Sure. Yeah.
We can do anything without.
You guys do good steaks too. I've had your steaks.
We do great steaks. Great steaks. We can do chicken dishes, salmon dishes, all kinds of things.
And pork chops too. You guys still have the pork chops, or
We're doing
no?
a special for pork chops for Easter. We have a pork chop and also lasagna special that we're going to do.
Holy cow, man! We have to stop talking about food now. I'm
and
so
it's
hungry.
6 pork chops. So if you don't want to know, you can kind of have maybe 1 to 3 meals out of that. So
sounds delicious. It really does.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thanks again. We're so glad, so proud of what you guys are doing, and thank you for continuing to bring positivity to this ridiculous time right now. So I really appreciate that. But thanks for coming on the podcast. Ben, do you want to close this out?
Sure. Yes. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. And now you're staring at our faces, which I'm sure is the best part of this. So Krista's always making good faces here too. So you can't see that right now because I'm the one talking, and that's what the software is doing, is it's looking at me. If she says something, it'll switch back to her. Thank goodness for that, right? If you like what you hear and see, we appreciate it so much, and we really would appreciate it if you would follow us on Facebook. That's kind of our primary landing page where you can talk to us and communicate with us, that kind of thing. Like and subscribe on SoundCloud and iTunes. That really helps us out with our visibility on the world's largest podcast repository. And now we're on the YouTubes as well, which is a totally new experience for us. And we're really looking forward to not reading the comments on these things too, because why would you do that? No, hey, the YouTube, find us on there, like and subscribe. That's through the Boxland media page. We may break it out into its own individual channel here at some point, but for right now, look up Boxland Media on YouTube. You can see that and lots of other stuff that we do, and we'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. The thumbs up, the bells, the whole thing means the world to us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
That was really well done. That was good. That was
I
good.
know. It's almost like I practiced it, but I did not. I definitely did not. So you guys both look fabulous, by the way. You're both dressed nicely and everything like that. And I'm literally wearing my Honey Badger Don't Care t-shirt, and I haven't shaved in 3 days. So like, you both are like, you look really put together and lovely and everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try to not be on camera as much as possible. But here I am. Yes. Hi.
There you are. Oh my goodness. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you sometime. Watch out for the bath salt zombies.
Yep. Watch out for the bath salt zombies.
Boxland Media. Think big.